We think of the U.S. Constitution as this bedrock of American law, and it is. But here's the thing. It was never meant to be set in stone. It was designed to be changed. The catch? Making those changes is incredibly, monumentally difficult, and that's on purpose. So today, we're going to take a journey into the Constitution's graveyard to explore the stories of the amendments that almost made it.
Okay, so since the Constitution was ratified way back in 1789, how many times do you think members of Congress have had an idea to change it? A few hundred? Maybe 1,000? Well, the number is closer to 12,000. 12,000! That is a mountain of ideas, debates, and attempts to reshape the country.
So we have this mountain of 12,000 proposals. Now, how many of those have actually become part of the Constitution? Just 27. That's it. From 12,000 down to 27. That's not just a small number. It's practically a statistical miracle for any amendment to survive that journey. It's a funnel of truly epic proportions.
So what gives? Why is the bar set so impossibly high? Was this some kind of design flaw, or was this difficulty part of the master plan? To really understand the amendments that failed, we first have to understand the brutal obstacle course they were all forced to run.
The framers knew exactly what they were doing. They created what I like to call the constitutional gauntlet. They wanted to make absolutely sure that any change to the nation's core document wasn't just based on some temporary political passion or a slim majority. No, it had to have a deep, widespread, and lasting agreement from the entire country.
So Article 5 of the Constitution lays out two main paths to get this done. An amendment can be proposed either by Congress or by a national convention called for by the states. Then it has to be ratified either by the state legislatures or by state conventions. As you can see, the process has these incredibly high bars set at every single stage. Okay, let's break down the most common path, the one that 26 of the 27 successful amendments have taken. First off, you need a 2/3 supermajority, way more than a simple 51%, in both the House and the Senate just to propose the thing. But then, believe it or not, it gets even harder. The proposal goes to the states, where 3/4 of them, that's 38 states today, have to agree. You need this overwhelming support at both the federal and the state levels. It's a huge lift. So what happens to the ones that actually clear that first massive hurdle in Congress, but then die on the long road to ratification? Well, they end up in the constitutional graveyard. These are the almost amendments, and their stories are some of the most fascinating what-ifs in American history. Now, take a look at this list. It's a pretty exclusive club. In all of U.S. history, only 6 amendments have ever been formally passed by Congress and sent to the states, only to fail ratification. Just 6. They got closer than thousands of others, and they touch on everything from the makeup of Congress to slavery to equal rights. So let's dive into their stories. Let's start at the very beginning. Here's a great piece of trivia. When the Bill of Rights was sent to the states in 1789, it actually had 12 proposed amendments, not 10. Yep, what we now call the First Amendment was actually the third on that list. The very first one proposed was all about the size of Congress, and it came just one state short of being ratified. This proposed amendment would have tied the number of members in the House of Representatives directly to the nation's population growth. So as the country got bigger, so would Congress. The idea was to make sure each representative served a smaller, more local group of people. On the surface, it sounds perfectly democratic. But just think about the unintended consequences. If this amendment had passed, the House of Representatives today wouldn't have 435 members. It would have over 5,000 members. Can you even imagine the chaos? It's a perfect example of how the framers just couldn't have possibly predicted the explosive future growth of the country. All right, our next ghost story is from 1810, and this one's so mysterious, it's nicknamed the Phantom Amendment. So in the years leading up to the War of 1812, there was this widespread paranoia that European monarchies were trying to corrupt the young American Republic by giving titles of nobility to influential citizens. So Congress responded with a proposal that was, well, incredibly severe. It said that if a citizen accepted a title like Lord or Baron from a foreign power, they would be stripped of their U.S. citizenship. Just like that. It passed Congress easily, got ratified by 12 states, but here's the wild part. A printer's error led to it being included in some official copies of the Constitution, which convinced a lot of people that it had actually passed. Now, we're going to shift to one of the darkest moments in the nation's history. It's 1861, Abraham Lincoln has been elected, southern states are starting to secede, and the country is on the verge of tearing itself apart. In a desperate, last-ditch attempt to hold the Union together, Congress was looking at over 200 proposals to try and solve the crisis. One proposal finally makes it through. It's called the Corwin Amendment, and it is absolutely shocking to read today. It would have permanently forbidden Congress from ever interfering with the state's domestic institutions, which was a clear euphemism for slavery. It would have enshrined slavery into the Constitution forever. It passed Congress, but the outbreak of the Civil War stopped the ratification process dead in its tracks. By the Progressive Era in the early 20th century, a different kind of moral crisis had gripped the nation. The widespread and brutal exploitation of children in factories, mines, and fields. Reformers pushed for change, which led to the proposal of the Child Labor Amendment in 1924. This picture, it's not just a historical artifact. It's a window into the harsh reality for millions of children. They worked long, long hours in dangerous conditions for pennies, with no hope for an education. This was the injustice that the amendment supporters were fighting against. And the scale of the problem was just staggering. In the year 1900 alone, an estimated 1.75 million children under the age of 15 were employed in the United States. This amendment would have given Congress the power to regulate youth labor. It passed Congress, but ultimately stalled out during ratification, with only 28 of the necessary states approving it. Okay, so we've got an amendment to fix Congress, one to stop foreign corruption, one to prevent a war, and one to protect children. All of them passed Congress with that 2/3 vote. So why did they all die? Well, there are a few common threads that tie their fates together. Ultimately, it comes back to that core idea. The difficulty of the amendment process is a feature, not a bug. The framers wanted to filter out everything except for ideas that had achieved a truly deep and lasting national consensus. The entire system is designed to favor stability over rapid change. That need for massive supermajorities is the biggest killer, for sure. Beyond that, the process is designed to filter out ideas that are only popular in one region or with one political party. And sometimes, as we saw with the Corwin and child labor amendments, the world simply moves on. Political priorities shift, or the issue gets resolved by other means. And that reveals a key insight. Societal change often outpaces the slow amendment process, forcing change through other channels, like new laws, landmark Supreme Court decisions, or, in the case of slavery, a brutal war. So, what does all this tell us about the Constitution today? You know, the phrase living documents gets thrown around a lot, suggesting something that's constantly evolving. But the story of the almost amendments shows that while it does live, it evolves very, very slowly and deliberately. Let this number sink in for a second. It's about a 500-to-1 shot. Those are the odds against any single idea proposed in Congress for changing the Constitution. It's a powerful reminder that amending the Constitution is meant to be a last resort for only the most fundamental and widely supported changes. But the process isn't impossible. It has worked 27 times, leading to amendments that abolished slavery and guaranteed the right to vote for women and 18-year-olds. So, I'll lead you with this to think about. Looking at our world today, what issue, if any, could actually generate the massive nationwide consensus needed to survive the gauntlet and become the 28th Amendment?